Sony first revealed the PS5 games were going to cost $70 versus the traditional $60, gamers all over the neighborhood flipped their poop. But then in a really bold move, Nintendo decided to go one step further and price Switch 2 games at $80. Obviously this sucks eggs, but the reality is that they're probably going to get away with it. And if you give me a wee bit, I'll tell you why. Okay, so, short story even shorter, Nintendo's gonna get away with an $80 price tag for Switch 2 games, because at the end of the day, we're all probably just gonna cave and buy the games anyway. And look, I don't mean this as too much of an insult towards Nintendo fans, seeing as I'm gonna cave too in certain cases like brand new 3D Mario or Zelda games. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna resist that, and I doubt any of you are gonna either. I mean, after all, nobody even resisted a $70 3D Zelda game on the regular Switch, so how is anybody gonna pretend like they're not gonna cave with $10 more for the Switch 2? See, back when Tears of the Kingdom was first revealed at $70, I half defended Nintendo knowing I'd get buried by the entire internet. But my whole point then was that at least they used the more expensive Switch cartridge to fit the entire game on there for collecting purposes, as opposed to Tropical Freeze costing 10 extra bucks for a Funky Kong mode that nobody asked for. $80 for Mario Kart World, on the other hand, though, that's just plain lame. First of all, we all know that this is not the complete game right here. I mean, Mario Kart 8 dipped its toes into the whole Smash Bros. Territory by adding non-Mario characters, and everybody loved it. Because while characters in Mario Kart games don't really make that big of a difference, the possibility of courses for all of Nintendo's different franchises were endless. Well, okay, the possibilities would have ended eventually, but still though, there's a lot more you can do with Nintendo's franchises than like the 800th Bowser's Castle course. Now that Mario Kart 9, or 10 if you count the mobile games out though, many are convinced that this means that we're back to normal Mario Kart, but like, no, we're not. I mean, come on now. Like, obviously Nintendo's gonna push the outside franchises way further, but thanks to the internet, it's not all gonna be on one collectible cartridge that we paid 20 extra bucks for. No, Nintendo's gonna milk Mario Kart World for every penny they can get with waves of DLC, cause for better or worse, companies know they can get away with this now. Not that very many people remember this anymore, but years ago, Capcom got hell for charging extra money for DLC that was already on the disc, but these days, publishers simply learned the lesson to leave all this content off of the physical media. Back in the day, on the other hand, though, developers used to make games as good as they possibly could have before releasing them, but now the goal seems to be to make them good enough and then charge extra for more content later on. Sometimes the day one version's absolute trash, but if we're being completely fair here, I'm sure the base game for Mario Kart World will probably be a fun, solid game without any extra content. Even though the game's already $80, the real money for Nintendo is gonna come from the DLC. Then again, the console bundle puts the game at $50, and if you're already subscribed to the online service, then the DLC will probably be free like it was with Mario Kart 8, so even though I promise you that I definitely wouldn't cave and buy World for $80, I'm not gonna act like $50 isn't fair, so whatever, I'll get the game under these circumstances. However, then there's the matter of all the other games, and I'll tell you right now, something like a 2D platformer or party game is not something I'm gonna spend $80 on. However, I will admit once again right now that I will cave for something like 3D Mario, Zelda, or Pikmin 5, but what about the other games? Hell, what about Metroid Prime 4? I mean, am I really willing to pay 20 extra bucks for better performance, or will I just get the Switch version? And even though I can't afford the Switch 2 version, paying extra money will still send Nintendo the direct message that I find this game at this price to be irresistible. And if enough people agree to pay $80 to the point where Nintendo makes more money than selling more copies at $60, then the fact of the matter is that the game is worth $80 because we would have all agreed to it. So is that something I'm really willing to compromise? And to be honest, I don't know for me personally. Honestly, I think the majority absolutely will compromise, and that the new normal for games going forward is going to be an $80 price tag, and it's only a matter of time before Sony follows suit, too. Except with Sony and third parties, I was honestly never really that upset over the $70 price tags, because we all know that every non-Nintendo game's like $20 within a year anyway. But Nintendo, on the other hand, no, almost never cuts prices. And if I'm being honest, a big part of me likes that my game's not going to immediately lose its value right after I buy it. But on the other hand, Mario Kart 8 still being a full retail price 11 years later is just plain ridiculous. So don't count on $80 Switch 2 games getting price cuts anytime soon, if ever at all. You see, the only way to convince Nintendo to cut their Switch 2 game prices is for the majority to simply not agree to pay them. If you don't believe me, this method's proven to work with the 3DS, GameCube, and even PlayStation Classic with Sony. That's just naming a few examples. Given that many of the $80 Switch 2 games are probably going to be great, I don't think that enough people are going to have it in them to resist. If you don't believe me, just take a look at the Pokemon franchise. I mean, when Sword and Shield were first revealed for the Switch, the entire internet roasted Game Freak's ass into oblivion for how the graphics were like 4% more impressive than the 3DS games, and how the games wouldn't even have all the Pokemon in it. Everybody swore they'd boycott, but then the games broke sales records, and years later, Game Freak still hasn't learned a thing, because at the end of the day, fans told them with their wallets that nothing needs to be changed. To this day, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person left boycotting the Pokemon franchise till the National Dex comes back, even though I know damn well I'm not making the slightest bit of difference. Just because I'm stubborn enough to stand my ground with a franchise I've loved for decades, though, I'm admitting right now that I probably won't be able to keep that same energy for every $80 Switch 2 game. Some of them I will for sure, but unless we get phoned in trash trailers, I don't think I'm going to be able to resist the key franchises. I know this isn't a very popular thing to admit, but personally, I'm not 100% against massive games costing a little bit more no matter what. Or a better way to put that, I guess, is that I think it's kind of weird that most retail games have always cost the exact same no matter what. Like, everything costs a little bit more these days, so I could live with the idea of a super badass massive 3D Mario game costing $80 if it meant something like a 2D Zelda game or Pokemon Snap would cost $40. And if Nintendo revealed some smaller scale but still good $40 games alongside an $80 Mario Kart World, then I don't think it'd have been that big of a deal. In fact, I think there's more room in the gaming world for some smaller scale AAA games. I mean, full retail games used to have all kinds of different prices way back when, and even to this day, Japan's game prices are kinda all over the place depending on what you're getting. Sadly though, we all know that that's probably not gonna be the case for first-party Switch 2 games. But at least with the less impressive games, I'll stand my ground, even though I know that my protests will probably be in vain, because I highly doubt that anybody else is really gonna follow through, just like how nobody followed through with the Pokemon boycott. Much like with sporting events and concerts, people can complain all they want about how expensive entertainment's gotten in recent years, but if sales records are being broken left and right, then we've all admitted that these prices are fair and irresistible. And if that doesn't bother you, then great, pay $80 for a game and have fun. Honestly, I'm not trying to be facetious or anything. But if you do care, then just remember that paying $80 anyway pretty much renders your complaints as meaningless. So if you really don't want $80 games to be normalized, then everybody needs to band together and resist it. And if you don't have the grit to resist it, then don't pretend to be outraged. I'm sure saying that's gonna make a lot of people angry, but don't get mad at me because it hit too close to home. I'm just telling you the facts. But anyway, that's all for today, but if you got a kick out of my awkward rambling and disturbing imagery though, then you should check out this video I made with Chris Hansen where we call the Persona 3 female protagonist out for being a weirdo, but if you'll excuse me though, I gotta go water my uncle now. Later!